Top of the morning to you, and welcome to another episode of the Star Wars Minute. It's your daily podcast where we analyze, we scrutinize, and we celebrate the rise of Skywalker 1 minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.fun.
I am Nick Mielke, one of the two hosts of the Around the Galaxy podcast, which you can find on the SSWnetwork.com.
Thank you for returning, Nick.
Thank you so much for allowing me to return. And I like that you said top of the morning, because it's important to note for those keeping score at home, I am drinking bourbon this morning.
Nice.
There you go.
That was totally why I said it.
Totally on brand for a guy that lives in Alabama. What can I say?
Pouring one out for Princess Leia.
Oh.
That's right.
Well, speaking of which, let's talk about minute number 83 of The Rise of Skywalker. Minute 83 starts off with R2-D2 looking at the fallen figure of General Princess Leia Frances Organa Solo Terwilliger. And it ends a minute later with Rey looking at the fallen figure of Benjamin Quadraros Chewbacca Solo, a.k.a. Kylo Ren, and admitting that she did blank.
She did blank.
So everyone write down your answers. Tomorrow we will reveal what it is that she did. And
All right.
In the meantime, I can't help but think Rey looks a little embarrassed that she stabbed Kylo right after he found out his mom died. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that was kind of a dick move. Like right then you had to do it.
Yeah. Oh, did I just kill you?
Oh, well, I guess we're both orphans now. She still has her pop though, at least.
Pop. Oh, I only want to refer to Steve as Pop now. Yeah, I do. I had a moment just a couple of weeks ago, an awkward thing where I was texting with somebody and I was like, hey, sorry, I've been, behind on this. My uncle, I just found out my uncle died and now I was sick and all this other stuff. And I was kind of giving this, sorry. So I've been out of communication, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm talking to them like, oh, it's okay. Blah. We kind of advanced the conversation because I said I was going to do something for them. And then I was like, all right, so I'll have that by tomorrow. I was like, okay, great. But then we're going to need to redo the next thing because my dad died on Thursday. And so she went up to me on that. And I was like, oh God, now I feel like I've been, I was mildly disheartened, it wasn't it wasn't my uncle that, was, that raised me or anything like that. It was just, my dad's brother who I didn't talk to that much, but it was still, I was sad to see him go, but then she had to be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I can't get that to you because my dad died. I was like, oh, okay.
That's cute.
Now I feel
here's
dumb.
This thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it seems like a similar, Rey is just kind of like, aha, oh no. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I did notice in this minute that for the embarrassment that we get from Rey, we also get what I wrote down in my notes as powerful crying, because as we've noted, it's very rainy. There's a lot of rain. There's a lot of wetness happening, but she's still crying hard enough that despite the rain, you can see the tear on her cheek. So kudos certainly to the production team that, were able to, maybe that was Daisy's actual tear. We don't know. But to cry that hard that it shows up even when you're getting, buckets of rain dumped on your head at the same time, she was clearly feeling something very strong in relation to her embarrassment for stabbing her pseudo-boyfriend.
Yeah.
That was
we could have taken the opportunity, these are all aliens. They could have cried green or something. So it would have been like, oh, we know. Now we see.
That would have been
or it could have been green rain on.
Like the guy in Casino Royale. It could have just even been a tear of blood, whatever we need.
There you go.
She starts spraying green liquid out of her fingers. Just doesn't everyone cry this way?
Is this normal?
Oh my God. I've never seen so much green in all my life. Oh. Yeah, she's like Mork.
So it looks like Kylo gets stabbed sort of in his right lung. Sort of.
Right.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm never having been stabbed at all, except maybe with a pair of scissors by myself. That seems like it would be better than a gut shot. You know what I mean? Like a gut lightsaber thing. especially because it cauterizes as it goes through. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like in the middle where there's more squishy stuff, it would be worse. Like, you puncture through more organs, I assume, than just going just through the lungs. But
right. Now,
And I mean, you've got two, so, one's still fine, right?
Yeah.
Always two there are.
Let it be known, nobody at Star Wars Minute is a doctor, but
Not a doctor.
yeah, it does seem like if she took out his pancreas, there's only one of those, and it has its own job, and it's relatively small to, you know what I mean? Like, she would take out a good chunk of it if she hit that with a lightsaber dead on. Whereas, like, yeah,
100%.
like right lung, you could probably deal. I don't know. It's like Boromir. When Boromir gets hit with some arrows like through the lungs, and it's just like, all right, he can sit. Well, like similar thing. Kind of just kind of sits and dies for a while, which I like.
Yeah,
he was just kind of
leaned
like
against that railing
okay.
that his dad didn't have, and he just got to sit there and take it all in.
I have to assume
just
he's
kind
in
of like-
shock. Just between learning that his mother died and that he got stabbed. Like, I think his brain is just like checked out, and he has no, he won't remember any
Right.
of this stuff. So,
Yeah. I did what? Really? Totally? Oh man.
Who are you again?
so
With my lightsaber?
that's
How
humiliating.
embarrassing.
Well, at least
Yeah.
it wasn't Luke's lightsaber. That would have been even worse.
My uncle.
Well, speaking of which, this is the moment where Rey goes, "Oh, right, I can heal people. That's my superpower." And then she
Right.
heals him,
Yeah. Which is surprising because he's not a snake.
isn't he?
That's true. Didn't they say something about I remember making it like likening it to Superman saying, "Luthor, you poisonous snake" at some point. Maybe in one of these movies, did somebody say something that?
Treacherous Snoke. It was Snoke.
Yeah. It was Snoke.
And I mean, if we want to
rest in peace.
stick with the snake analogy, I think it's pretty obvious that Kylo gives off big Slytherin energy. So if he was going to end up getting a house, he'd totally be there. So it all, it all connects together.
Why do they even have a school to teach evil wizards magic? Why do they even have Slytherin? Shouldn't you're Slytherin? All right, you're kicked out of the school. Like,
Yeah, sorry, you don't get to go here.
strange.
Yeah.
How did that
Well, it's
backfire
'cause
on us?
it's like
Educating
the
a whole
charter.
class of evil people. Anyway, sorry. Go
way
ahead.
that it,
75% of the school is great. 25%, not so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Those are the
bad
things your
50%
parents
is
warned
great.
you about.
50% is great. 25 is like normal.
yeah.
Yeah,
is
25 like, oh, how sweet.
is good job. Yeah.
Or as we say in the South, bless your heart.
Yeah, exactly. And then 25% is evil. So
Exactly. Well, I have a point about the force healing.
Oh yeah, we got a lot to unpack there.
And obviously we've seen some other versions of this, and we can get to that in a minute. But I feel like the reaction that Kylo had to being force healed was pretty low key, if not middle of the road. And so I wonder, and I propose two options to you. I'd love to know if you guys have one of your own. I feel like it needed a stronger reaction. So my two suggestions were, one, as she was force healing, what if it was like he was ticklish? Maybe he responded in a very overly like ticklish way. Or what if it made him like belch? We're looking at lungs, we're looking at, breathing and some of that. What if he just let out like a Buddy the Elf style burp when she healed it? Like, I feel like we could have added so much to that healing moment that made it, added a little more humor, bring some lightness to this whole rainy
totally.
Kef beer situation.
Well, it should have been like a health bar where you see it go.
While hers is simultaneously going down.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I like both of those ideas. I'm trying to think of what, like, I love the idea of him being ticklish. Like,
Exactly.
But then I also do like the idea of him, like, I like the idea of him almost being like a like a lungfish or some kind of weird, because his lung is like, she's like reestablishing his lung essentially. So of him just being like, like uncontrollably while she's doing it. And then finally it works out.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be having any most of the people, he doesn't seem to be having any trouble breathing particularly. I feel like most of the people we've seen killed by lightsabers die pretty much instantly.
Right.
Like when
No,
Palpatine's killing Kit Fisto and those guys, they're not laying
Kit
around.
Fisto?
What?
No, Kit Fisto, remember, faked his death and went on to live a new life.
Okay, well, whoever the fake Fisto was in there.
No, he just hit the ground and like he was like, oh, lightsaber, and then
Just
like
lay
waited
here,
until
play
everybody left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Obi-Wan disappeared instantly, but he's kind of the outlier, not really
Right.
like your typical.
Qui-Gon again just laid down for a while, and then as soon as the battle is over, he's like, okay, now train the boy, feed my goldfish. Don't forget.
See you later.
Erase my browser history and
and other people who died.
the people who died.
I think Count Dooku would have been the funniest one to linger after his death. Like his head is just laying on the pavement. Oh, master, why did you do this to me?
He should have gotten all C-3PO's lines from the droid factory.
What a pain
What
in
a
the
drag.
Yeah. Or he should have just like risen back up like Dracula, because that would have been a good
See?
like
That's where it comes full circle.
put his head back on.
Dooku has risen from the grave. Or you
Ichabod
would
Crane
regenerate a new one.
Slowly.
Crops out of his
It
neck.
starts out small, like the little tiny head guy on Beetlejuice, and then it just grows into regular size.
Yeah.
You think I could be defeated so easily?
So I looked up force healing on the good old Wikipedia.
Sure.
And according to, it goes into what it can and can't do. It says it can resurrect dead tissue or even persons. So somewhere in this expanded universe, we've seen someone brought back to life via force healing. Somewhere Anakin Skywalker is like, what? The whole time?
Right.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
And
Well, I don't know if it can heal sad.
That's right. No
It
help
can
for
heal
Padme still.
lightsabering.
you don't think?
Nope.
It's true.
Still died of sadness. Like in that situation, she needs a force user who's good with like a seltzer bottle and a pie to the face. Like she needs somebody to cheer her up, not physical
like some-
healing, because that was it.
Some Zoloft or
Just a dispensary droid. That's really all.
Bounty
we need.
hunter?
I was surprised to learn that dark side people can also force heal. Seems kind of counterintuitive. You think they would have like a force like damage or something?
Have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
But it says Darksiders can heal, but quote, such power comes at a terrible price. A little vague there as to what that is. It like a genie Twilight Zone kind of thing where you could use it, but then some other calamity will befall you if you.
Or it's like 1247. It's something that doesn't quite make sense. You're like, what? Why is that the price? Like,
Or is it subtly approving the theory that Palpatine used Padme's force energy to heal Anakin, and that drained her. That's the terrible price. Was that you're
there you go.
basically killing
That
someone
could
else's.
be. That's why she lost the will to live, because it was sucked out of her to heal Anakin.
Yeah.
I like that story now.
I think it's a good. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting, the force healing, the whole big part of force healing, and I looked up the same article that you did, Alex, in preparation, and, we've seen a couple little bits, we get some little indications of, other places we've seen it. Most recently, we've seen it in The Mandalorian, with little baby Yoda healing Greef Karga, healing Din Djarin, that kind of thing. But it was not, and I've been a Star Wars fan literally my entire life, I would say it has only been in the last handful of years, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this out loud, so if I need to mail my fan card to one of you to turn it in, I'm willing to. But when Obi-Wan puts his hands on Luke's forehead like this after he's been attacked by the Tusken Raiders, that is reportedly, according to the Wikipedia article, him doing some force healing on Luke. I'll be honest,
Thumbs
as a
down.
dumb child who, when I first saw that as a small kid, probably 5 years old or younger, I think I thought he was maybe checking his vital signs by putting his hands on his forehead.
Yeah.
Like, is he warm? Does he have a fever? Like, my mom did that to me all the time. It took me a lot longer than it should have to put together that perhaps he was healing him with the Force.
I don't like it.
I don't know. I don't know what the extent of his injuries were, but it doesn't seem like he needs that.
Yeah,
so I think it might be overkill, but I don't know. I'm not opposed to force healing in general. Is in line with what I understand the Force to be.
Sure.
My Force.
Yes.
Not like this,
not your Force.
stopping a lightsaber with your hand. That's nonsense. But healing is it feels like a natural. It's the energy field that surrounds us and penetrates us and all that stuff.
It makes perfect sense. And honestly, as a kid who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I grew up with the Legends material, and one of the things that was key for me was the Jedi Academy trilogy, the Kip Duran books, and there was a whole thing through that book where Mon Mothma had been poisoned, and throughout the course of it, one of the Jedi, whether it was Luke or whether it was the kid, used their Force abilities to literally withdraw the poison from Mon Mothma's body out of her bloodstream, like a droplet at a time. And so that was my real first introduction to Force healing, and being something that was like, okay, this is a very positive, light, life-affirming kind of ability that you could have.
It does seem a natural outgrowth of the Force,
Sure.
It does seem consistent with that. I was shocked along those same lines. I was like, I'm going to look up when this Force healing thing started. I'm assuming it was in some EU stuff from the 90s or whatever, and I was stunned to see the first appearance of Force healing, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Literally the very first outside the movie thing we heard, and Force healing was in it. So I guess we can't really complain about it. It was 1978.
Been here all along, baby.
Been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was.
I feel like I need to reread Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I think I did read it once a long time ago.
Long time,
yeah.
Speaking of a long time, another thing that struck me in the Force healing entry was they allege Obi-Wan sustained, while he was on Tatooine, Obi-Wan sustained his heart against weariness and age using the Force. And I'm like, why would he was a relatively young man when he arrived at Tatooine. Why would he need to?
Yeah.
And it made me think he was bad at it, and that's why he looked so old.
That's right. He wore himself out, literally.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm doing this right. I feel terrible.
I'm so tired all the time.
Yeah.
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing for real.
I'm making myself too old for this sort of thing.
He just didn't want to go. He's like, I don't want to go on this mission. Makes himself, older. Like it's like makeup. He just changes his
Well, he
face.
did that to get into bars. So.
Yeah. So there you go. Force healing.
Force healing.
Well, the other aspect of Force healing that you didn't mention, but certainly was in that article, and we get a different version of it with Rey, is they talked about the ability to heal kyber crystals. And we see the exploded lightsaber at the end of Last Jedi, and then that lightsaber is repaired by the time we get to this movie. It's got kind of the leather wrap around the middle from where they tore it apart. And so the understanding that I read from that article is that Rey somehow managed to heal that crystal. Also, part of the deal with Ahsoka Tano is that her sabers are white because she at some point healed some dark side lightsaber crystals. The rumor, the understanding with dark side crystals is that they're bled so that they become red, and you can reverse that process, which is another version of Force healing, can also be applied to saber crystals as well.
So in a sense, Ahsoka is kind of like a lightsaber vampire.
That's right. It's sustaining her, clearly. That's what's keeping her around. That's what's bringing her to us in August.
Space vampire. Suck a little bit more money out of a Disney Plus audience.
Yeah.
Whatever she's doing, it's working.
I know this is the way that this sort of modern Star Wars is. I don't like the whole idea of kyber crystals being like, oh, to make one, you torture a kyber crystal. How do you torture a kyber crystal? Put it on the rack. What is and healing a crystal? Come on, what is this? Anyway,
it is a little wizardy to me, and I don't. That's not in line with my.
Yeah,
it's one of the more marked changes between some of the old old Legends material and the newer stuff, because that's certainly a much newer, vibe. I recently reread or started rereading Shadows of the Empire, and they talk about in the Shadows of the Empire book about Luke making a crystal, and basically like there's an oven and it's like easy bake, you're baking, it makes the inside of the hut smell weird, but like he's making a crystal, he's not finding a crystal and bleeding it, whereas you have something like Rebels where Ezra finds a crystal, Jedi Fallen Order when you play that game, and Cal Kestis finds a crystal in a cave. Like, it's a different vibe and it's a different scenario. So you're right. And to me, that feels like one of the bigger force shifts that I don't know that we necessarily needed.
Yeah. And, I understand the people that it's like, well, it's always been fantasy, but sometimes it takes two steps too far into fantasy for me.
There's a romance and an allure to the crystal calls to you, or, you have a connection with it, and that's a part of this whole bigger living force kind of thing. But then you start to get into, like, again, torturing crystals. What are we really talking about here?
Yeah. Have we ever had somebody having a conversation with a kyber crystal? That's the...
I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure there was.
You're not
someone had a dream.
enough.
No, like there was like a dream sequence where like that's how they found their kyber crystal, is it came and spoke to them in a dream or something.
Okay.
I guess also what bugs me about it, and this is dumb, but like, why would a rock have the force in it? Isn't it supposed to be surround all living things? And it should be a little animal. It should be like a kitten inside the lightsaber that's being tortured to make the blade go. That I would approve.
Now we're torturing kittens, Alex, and we've gone down a whole other horrible path.
It makes more sense.
Right. I think you need to watch Dune instead.
No, but we do hear, and I think we hear it maybe when Luke's talking to Rey in Last Jedi, where he says, you can feel it in the rocks, the trees, I've always gotten the impression the Force is in everything. Certainly trees and grass and those kind of things are considered living, beings of some sort. But we're told at one point it's in the rocks. It's maybe even with Yoda on Empire.
I think Yoda says it.
On Dagobah when he's balancing and he's doing some of that. Yeah.
I thought he says the space between you and the rock. But anyway, why would a rock have midichlorians in it?
Dwayne Johnson, the space between you and Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
He's cooking something. What's that phrase?
It's a byproduct of the Force is that you can always figure out how far away you are from.
Yeah, you can always smell what he's cooking. That's it.
Yeah. Well, if you're close enough with the Force, you can smell it. It's like, he's making a lightsaber.
Comes out carrying a tray with oven mitts and
right,
freshly baked lightsabers, wafting the smell towards you.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever see The Rock in a Star Wars?
Yes.
All right.
He's already been on. He was on Voyager. He was on an episode of Voyager, so he's already.
But that was
before he was.
That was on his way up.
Yeah, I know. Before he was.
So you're saying on his way down,
he's in. I think if we do, he's in a dramatic amount of costume, Simon Pegg, Uncle Pluck's kind of makeup. I don't think we get rock face in a Star Wars.
I was going to do the opposite and say it's basically like Christian Slater in Star Trek, where it's just like, that's clearly just The Rock. And he's like, here's the plans, everyone, arching his eyebrow. And he's like, see you later. And
it's actually The Rock in his wrestling trunks, no shirt, no anything.
Yeah.
Carrying
a Black Adam Blu-ray.
Although I could see him starring in one. I can see him being, like I can see him being the central character in a more action-based Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Little known fact, he was probably second in line behind Jude Law for Skeleton Crew, and Jude Law was just too charming, so they had to do it.
That's true.
It's a charisma off, and Jude Law won. Do you
you fought Jude Law and Jude Law won.
And the Law won.
I'm surprised. I mean, I know the last thing we need is more Star Wars content coming out, but it seems like adapting something like doing a Star Wars version of like Fast and Furious would be like a natural thing. Or do you think it's just because it's cars and people are into cars who aren't necessarily into Star Wars? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you walk a fine line there when you ask that question, Alex, because we saw how much everybody lost their minds in Book of Boba Fett over the multicolored shiny speeders. So I don't know if our fresh Star Wars friends are fully prepared for a Fast and the Furious family style Star Wars situation.
I think those scooters were neither fast nor furious.
Agree completely. And yet they caused so much outrage.
Yeah, they
made
everyone
people
else
furious quite fast.
They fastly made people furious. That's about it.
Yeah. Are you a wrestling fan, Nick?
I not especially. I have connections to old school wrestling growing up in the 80s. Junkyard Dog, that kind of thing. But but no, I don't have a lot of newer connection.
Okay. I was wondering what other wrestlers would be good Star Wars. I guess the ones who have done other movies, John Cena and the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right,
Hulk
Batista.
Hogan. Hulk Hogan's canceled though, right now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he can't be in a Star Wars.
Yeah. Sorry, missed your shot.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out. Well, I know it's a separate whole thing, but I think there's good people on the other side of. There's AEW people that would be good in Star Wars and not famous enough that you'd be distracted, and that they would be good in it. They would probably appreciate it, and they would be good. Like give me a Danhausen in a Star Wars. I'm here for it all day.
Well, anything else?
Maybe we could get like a blood sport Star Wars. We could get the underground fighting. We saw a little bit of it in Mandalorian with the Gamorrean guards fighting, or the Gamorreans fighting each other. Let's get blood sport Star Wars going on. I'm on board for that.
Masters of Terrascasi, the motion picture.
I'm here for it. 100%.
Yeah.
You don't even include Star Wars in the title or anything.
No.
It's just that
Just
word.
Masters of Terrascasi.
Yeah, the beginning. Well, all right. I guess that will wrap up minute 83. Don't forget, we're waiting to see what Rey is admitting that she did. She says, "I did blank. I did blank." And we will get our answers tomorrow. And listeners, we want answers from you. We want you to call our hotline, 8-Day Greedo, on your local telephone and leave us a message. Well, not about force healing. I guess that's already done. There's no more force healing, right? Or does Kylo Ren
kind of,
heal her at the end or whatever? I don't even remember
it's
the
like
end.
It's like a healing kiss of sorts.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know what you think of those horses that are riding around on the Star Destroyer. That scene, that's a good controversial item.
Horses on a Star Destroyer?
It's not Equus. What's that guy's name? The X-wing pilot who's a horse. What's his name?
Oh, Hojas Equesh.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. If you want to talk about Equus, we I don't know, keep it PG-13 and keep it brief, and we'll see what we can do.
No, I'm going to call up. I'm going to talk about Equus when I call up 8-Day Greedo, as should you, and then you should join us here tomorrow for minute number 84 of Star Wars Minute.